Welcome back. In the previous sessions, we learned how to create a dynamic dashboard. This dashboard was created with the help of pivot table feature in Excel. The limitation with pivot tables is that when the data set gets updated, the pivot tables don't get updated automatically. So let's look with an example. For the southern region, the revenues for office supplies is $4.9 million. If I go to the data set and then for the southern region, office supplies, I change the revenue from 943 to 1 million, enter. If we look at the dashboard, the revenue numbers don't change. We go to the working sheet and then click on the pivot table, right click and then click on refresh. Once we click on refresh, the revenue numbers changes and the same is reflected in the dashboard. There is no inbuilt feature in the pivot table which can refresh the data automatically. So if we go to analyze pivot table options, within the data tab, we see that there's an option to refresh the data when opening the file. But at times the data may change and we may not close the file and then reopen it for the data to get updated. We may also forget to refresh the data by right clicking on the pivot table. To save us from such uncertainties, we have a trick in Excel which we can apply to get the pivot tables automatically updated whenever there's a change in data. So this is just a one-line macro which will solve the problem of data refresh for the pivot tables. So we have the data in this sheet. We'll type the original number, which was 943. Now we'll click on the data tab and then press Alt and F11 to go to the Visual Basic Editor. So this is the Visual Basic Editor. We also have the option to right click on this data tab and then select View Code. So it takes us again to Visual Basic Editor. Here we have the option of General. We'll select the worksheet from the dropdown. This basically means that this macro will refresh whenever there's a change in this worksheet. Now we'll write the one-line macro, which is worksheets within bracket and quotes. The worksheet with the pivot table is the working worksheet. So within quotes, we'll write the name of the worksheet, which is working dot pivot tables. Again, within quotes, the name of the pivot table, which we want to refresh. So we go to the working sheet, click on the pivot table, then go to analyze pivot table. Here we have the name of the pivot table, which is pivot table 1. We'll copy this name. Again, go to the Visual Basic Editor, paste the name, close the quotes bracket, and then dot pivot cache dot refresh. Once we press enter, we see that the color of the font changes, which means that the VBA code written by us is correct. We'll save it. It says that it cannot be saved in a macro-free workbook. To save the file with this feature, click No, and then choose macro-enabled file in the file type list. So we'll click on No. The Excel asks us to save the file as macro-enabled workbook. From the drop-down, we will select Excel macro-enabled workbook, and then the name of the file is Excel dashboard practice. So we will save it on our desktop, then close the macro. Now go to the data tab, click on the data tab, and then before clicking, we will check the data. So for southern region office supplies, the revenue is $4.9 million. We go to the data, again, change the revenue by 1 million, enter. We go to the dashboard. Here we see that the total sales number has changed automatically. This macro helps refresh the pivot table data whenever there's a change in data. Again, type the original number 943, enter. We go to the pivot table, we see that the numbers have got updated automatically. So this is how we can refresh the pivot table data automatically to save us from future uncertainties whenever there's a change in data. Thank you. In the next session, we will learn how to log this sales dashboard so that we don't insert or delete any of the objects in the dashboard in future. Thank you.